This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
I think so. I think tonight we were trying to force things, and maybe that's why they extended the lead. We were giving them too many chances. And, I think if we stick with our game, we have a chance to come back. But I think tonight maybe we were forcing things.
Oh, Braden points. I think we're just moving on from the last game. I don't know how you feel about it, partner.
We can. I'm not sure the fans. I'm not sure the fans are ready to move on. We may have some. I don't know. I don't see the question. So you tell me. Do we have a lot of fan interaction from last show?
Well, we had a ton of fan. We had a ton that we didn't get to.
Yeah,
I'm
we
waiting
can address
for
some of that,
this.
unless it starts to become redundant. Maybe if we've already answered the question, we don't need to answer it 5 different ways.
What's interesting is I think when you have a loss to, and maybe it's to your rival, you tend to think your warts are bigger than what they really are. You're a little bit more sensitive to it. Panthers have done well against the Lightning in the playoffs. They've won Stanley Cups back-to-back. They're going for a 3. We get all of that. So maybe when things don't go as well against a team like that, you have a tendency to dissect more of the problems than you would if, let's say, you were to lose to the Islanders and kind of go from there. The thing about the Panthers and the Lightning, I think we both think they're playoff teams. Of course, we're a third of the way through, and you still have to prove it. So we understand that.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen either team with a full roster that's healthy.
No.
Now, who does that side with in a positive way more? I don't know. We may never know that answer if they don't play each other in the playoffs. But I think it's fair to say that you can look at those teams and say both have been facing some adversity this year, and there's some other storylines that make that series potentially juicier with everything that's gone on with Hagel and things like that. But people have been talking about the East in general, and who's the best team. I usually don't do this, but if, and this is a big if, those teams are healthy, are there 2 teams in the East that are better than Tampa Bay and Florida? Measurably?
I don't know, Greg. Look, if we're waiting
Audience?
for some of these, if we're waiting for some of these teams that, let's just say, have been upstart teams, we're more than a third of the way through the season. We are approaching, in the next few weeks, the halfway point of the regular season. If we've been waiting for some of these teams that have surprised us a little bit in the East to drop off, it hasn't happened yet. Detroit's still getting points. Montreal's still getting points. Boston's still getting points. Talking about Atlantic teams. Buffalo dipped. People were like, wow, they're going to fall off the map here. They didn't. They won 3 in a row. They got back to Hockey 500. They're hanging in there. I know when we were talking with Doug Plagans the day of the Panther game, the gap was 7 points between first and last in the Atlantic. So I don't know how you can say, who are the best 2 teams or what are the best 2 teams. And that's just the Atlantic. That's not taking into account, the full East. I don't want to kind of give short shrift to the Montreals and the Bostons and the Detroits. They've earned what they've gotten this year. Now you're saying, well, look at their roster, look at their pedigree, look at their limited relative to certainly the Panthers recently and the Lightning generally, look at their, relative lack of playoff experience. That's fair. But does that mean that they would have no shot in a playoff series?
I think it's more that
they're
the
trending.
Lightning,
They're definitely trending in the right direction.
I've seen a lot of trending teams over the course of my time covering hockey, partner, and
but
so
this
have you.
year does feel different. Don't
It
you
may.
agree?
But I think you could also say it feels different for the Lightning. That's what I was trying to get at. Let's not discount, not that you are, but I want to bring it back to the Lightning. And if you want to throw the Panthers in here, these are 2 teams that have been there, done that. They've done some remarkable things. Some people would say is age catching up to some of the veterans who've played a lot of hockey, injuries. But what I'm saying is, like, eventually the Lightning are going to get these guys back. And they've done really well to this point, staying atop, to your point, of a very competitive East. And I think the Lightning weren't the darlings at the beginning of the year to be one of the best teams, like the top two or three in the East. They really weren't. And what I'm saying is, I think maybe we need to have that discussion. Maybe not me and you specifically on this show for a full hour. I would just like to call out that, all right, wait a minute. I don't get hyperbolic. I probably tend to look at things a little more critically than most Lightning fans, in part because I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. Is it's not always, roses and a glass of wine and everything's feeling great. I'd like to try and point out, okay, before we get too excited, there are some flaws here. I'm going to come on the other end and say, look, they've had some injuries, and boy, the depth really has shown this year. I mean, I feel like the Lightning are just as good as anybody in the East. And if we're going to put Lightning, would you agree with that?
That's true. So I think where the Lightning have surprised us this year, and I'll use that word because I'm not sure we knew, at least going into training camp, we didn't know about some of the depth that they had. We didn't know they were going to need to rely on this depth. And, if you were going to tell me that Ryan McDonagh was going to miss half of the season, by the way, we can get to how they practice today, and it looks good for McDonagh. I mean, I haven't heard. Practice may just be wrapping up. We may get some information from the session. I actually popped over there briefly. So McDonagh looks good. So he may be able to return, but he's missed, what, 16 games? Lightning have played, 33? Yeah. So, if you were to tell us at the beginning of the year, okay, the Lightning will be 33 games in, and Ryan McDonagh will have missed half of those, and the Lightning are still going to be one of the better defensive teams in the NHL, we probably would have said, well, maybe they're relying on their goaltending more. Yeah. But by the way, Vasilevskiy's missed a little time too. I think we would say, well, how are they doing it? They're doing it because they have gotten contributions up and down the roster, dipping into Syracuse at the start of the year in terms of limiting chances. I mean, they had some points where they've struggled to score.
Yeah.
We've documented that with Point and Bjorkstrand. They went through a team-wide slump for a little bit. The Gord, Gergensons, Holmberg line has been at its best when it's been the three of them. When one of those guys has been out, they haven't quite been able to replicate it, I think. And, they haven't scored a lot, but they've scored some, right? They've chipped in. So I think it's not really been – the story to me this year has been the Lightning have been able to defend at a very high level, even as they are leaning on guys that we weren't expecting them to have to lean on at the start of the year. That's the story of the first 33 games for the Lightning, and they've needed that because the division is extremely tight. They are still, I would say, in an advantageous position. I still lean back on playoff pace. I may be proven, not just me, but, John Cooper actually is going the other direction. He's 96. You might need to throw that out the window. It might be 86. I don't know if that's going to be the case, though, because so many teams are getting points through overtime games. If it stays close, though, you figure there are fewer points to go around. So that would be vote for Cooper. Vote for Cooper. Vote for Jack Adams for John Cooper, but a vote for his sentiment. 96 may not be enough. Who knows? Right now, if you look at playoff pace, there are a lot of teams in the Atlantic that are right there to get to 96, or at least close to 96. I still lean on that, though, because that helps your head from exploding. When you're like, what did Toronto do tonight? What did Buffalo do tonight? This team got extra point with an overtime loss. If the Lightning take care of their own business, and they've done it through 30 games, 36 points, and now they're 1-1-1 into the next 10-game segment, which is fine. They have to make hay here, continue to make hay. That's kind of what I go by, and I think that they have put themselves in a good spot. 33 games in, they've hit their playoff pace markers. Let's see if they can keep doing it. But the race is tight, and the Lightning have needed to play at a high level defensively to ensure that they have met playoff pace.
And I don't know if I had that on my bingo card.
Right.
I think you've always been probably more of a believer in their defensive abilities than me. And you've said that on the air, and I think to a degree you've been right. We had that
Well, when they
conversation
don't play
last
well
year.
defensively, I say it.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
like, they're
yeah,
gonna
for
need
sure.
to play better.
No. But collectively, I kind of always view the Lightning as a team that their best defense is their offense when they're controlling play, and that sometimes the defensive zone coverage can be a weakness. I think that's true to a degree, but I think they've done a lot better this year than I've thought. And to me, that is very encouraging because when your offensive game isn't humming along, and look, at times it hasn't this year, the Lightning have given themselves a chance to earn some points through the course of these 33 games because for the most part, defensively, they've been very sound, which leads me to that bodes well come playoff time. Health is the greatest X factor. You don't know who's going to be healthy. And I do think playoff hockey and regular season hockey, those are drastically different than in any other sport when you compare the regular season to the postseason. I do. I just think it's a different animal. Oh, and by the way, the officiating changes. In baseball, a strike is a strike, most likely, whether it's in the World Series or whether it's game 85. Basketball might be a little bit different. They may swallow the whistle and say, we don't want to impact the game. Maybe that happens. Although I tend to think, in many ways, officiating in football and in the NBA, a foul is a foul. Hockey, you get into this weird area where it's like, you could be in the third period of a game in the playoffs, and that whistle is swallowed, and it definitely impacts things. So I get that part of it. What I'm saying is, though, I think, and this is also an important point, the Lightning's goaltending has shown very well. Vasi, I think, clearly you want to see him back on the ice sooner rather than later, and we think that's going to happen. But if they get healthy and their goaltending stays at this level, there may be more teams who have a little bit more firepower. I don't know. But defensively, this team is right there. And I think that's been very, very encouraging.
Let's see at the end of the year. Remember last year at the end of the year in the regular season, we looked at the team defensive numbers, and the fans who are regular listeners, viewers to the show have heard us talk about this. But last year, 15 of the top 16 defensive teams were playoff teams.
Yeah.
And the one team that was the other team in the top half was Calgary, which missed the playoffs by a point. So if you defended, you got in the playoffs, or you were basically right there.
Yeah.
Let's see if that happens this year, because it's so tight. Like half the league, most of the league that is in the bottom half is still in the race. So this year may be different. This year may just be a weird year where it's so tight. It's kind of like however you're getting your points, maybe there are some teams, to your point, that are, I think Columbus fits into this category because I think they would like to have been better defensively this year than they were last year. I don't think that that's been the case. I can actually look them up right now. But I know they just had a win last night. So let me look at the standings and see where they are. So they are near the bottom in the conference, but they're at 34 points. They're only 4 points out of a wild card spot. So again, it's tight. So their standings record doesn't look good, but that's a little optically confusing because they are within range of doing very well. And I'm just picking on Columbus because I know they've had some high-scoring games for and against. So where are they? Defensively, the Columbus Blue Jackets are 29th in the NHL. Remember we were talking about Montreal when the Lightning played them?
Yeah.
They were 29. Now they're 31st defensively. Yet look at where they are in the standings.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a bunch of teams in the bottom half. The Florida Panthers are in the bottom half. Detroit Red Wings are in the bottom half. The Bruins are in the bottom half. They're closer to the middle, but like they are a first-place team right now. Well, second place. They're a point behind Detroit. So first and second in the Atlantic, neither one of those teams, Detroit or Boston, has showed well defensively this year. So this year may be a little different. Maybe a little different in terms of how many points it takes to get in, at least in the East, but maybe also to some extent in the West. And this year may be one of those years where you give up a lot of goals in the regular season, but you're doing enough to get points, which goes to this whole overtime thing. And we can get more into the Kings tomorrow. They play the Panthers tonight. They lead the NHL with 14 overtime games played. They played 14 overtime games already. I mean, remember last year, the team with the most overtime games, there were two. Calgary and Vancouver played 24.
Yep.
Kings have played 14. I mean, we're not even halfway through the season yet.
For sure.
They've lost 9 of them, which is not great, but they played 32 games. 14 out of their 32 games have gone to overtime, and they're not the only team. I mean, I'll give you the top teams here. There are 4 teams near the top. Kings have played 14, then 3 teams have played 13. Vegas, Philly, and Columbus. These teams are on pace to eclipse 30 overtime games this year. If you're playing 30 overtime games, just think of how much that is reducing the likelihood of you taking a regulation loss. Right?
Yep.
So maybe it's going to come down to who does the best in some of these overtime games. Lightning are a little bit unusual that they haven't played as many overtime games as a lot of these other teams. So that is factoring in as well. The quote-unquote loser points. Where we're going to start to see some needle moving with changing the point setup is if we see a bunch of teams get in the playoffs basically so they got into overtime. This would be the year. You're going to see some teams complaining that they missed out when they had a whole bunch more wins, regulation wins, but they missed out on the playoffs because there were even more teams that finished ahead of them because they got more games to overtime and lost a bunch, but they got those
Sure.
bonus points. That's when we're going to start to see potential movement for, I mean, I may be wrong. Maybe they're not going to change it, but I think that would be what it would take because it's been floated before, 3 points for a win before overtime, 2 if you win in overtime in the shootout, 1 if you lose. So every game is worth 3 points.
Yeah.
But you get more if you win in regulation. It's going to take something like what might happen this year, where teams that do well in regulation relative to another team are missing out on the playoffs because they didn't get enough games to overtime.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, let's get into the practice, and then maybe we can get some
Yeah, we'll get
questions
some
that we
questions.
missed. So the Lightning had a practice today. The bad news will start there. Hagel is not on the ice. So that to me means that, he was injured.
I feel
in the
for that
game
guy, man. Feel for that
on
guy.
Monday. Yep.
Yeah, that stinks.
So on the other side, and there's not really much more we can add until we hear
Correct.
from Coop because
Yeah.
there's been no media availability since the game ended, and Coop didn't address it after the game on Monday. So on the other side of the coin, Vasilevskiy has been skating, but it's just him and Johansson on the ice, so it looks like it's the two of them, and I would not be surprised if Vasi gets the start tomorrow against the Kings. McDonough looked like, they didn't really run the lines of the D when I was there. They just ran drills. But McDonough looked like a full participant. If you were to ask me right now, I would say he's in tomorrow. We'll see. If it's not tomorrow, we are within, it legitimately is day to day. He is going to be back soon. Dominic James is back to just the regular shield. So we were wondering if that was affecting him at all. Maybe the after effects of the actual injury, and we're talking about the injury where he got hit in the cheek, basically, with the puck. And ever since, he has worn the full shield. In college, he wore a cage. This was a full shield. And we both commented, he hasn't quite been as noticeably dynamic, really, since then. And we were wondering, maybe it is a little bit the shield, the full shield. So we'll see if that helps. Anyway, what it looked like to me, other than Chernak and Hedman, right? And now Hagel, all the guys that you would expect and want to see on the ice were on the ice.
And that's huge.
That is huge. Yeah. So there's your update from me, but we'll hopefully, before we go off the air, get more information if we can get some comments post-practice.
Yeah, the James situation may be interesting playing without that guard because I don't think he's been the same since having to wear it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a coincidence or maybe he's just struggling.
Right.
I don't know. I don't want to make excuses, but I am interested to see if
an
that's
adjustment.
an impact.
Like we were impressed
yeah.
that like he just seems like unaffected by like here he is in the NHL. You know, he's starting, he's playing, he's not getting rewarded, he's still getting chances. It was really coinciding with the injury that it seemed like once he came back, he's been a little bit. I mean, he hasn't been poor. Like he's not played badly. It's just he's not as noticeable in terms of generating chances. Now he is doing some other things well. Like I think he's still being a puck hound. We mentioned the 2 penalties he drew against the Islanders, the first of which was very important because it set up the second penalty that Zizekas took, which led to the 5-on-3 goal for Radish.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's just, more of an observation. So I think that part would be kind of interesting. Let's get to some questions. Anna Rigo, she says, should we bring back Connor Geekie? Look, I think we're all interested to see when he gets an opportunity to come back up here, what he looks like. Mm-hmm. I do think, partner, there is some debate about, is there one spot technically still open in the top 6? Have they completely filled it? I mean, you have an idea of who it could be. We've seen Gonsalves, we've seen James to a degree, we've seen Geekie. Mention some other players if you want. Nick Paul bumping up there. Gergenson's right. But is there another opening there where there's some open competition where it's not completely filled yet that maybe Geekie does at the end of the year? We look at him and say, that's where he needs to be and he's most productive. Because I don't think bringing up Geekie and putting him on a 4th line, which I don't think they will because the 4th line I think is set. I don't think he should be buried, though, in that circumstance. I do think his skill set is such, and probably James, too. They need to be playing with some guys who can do similar things. Now, the caveat to that is they have to produce. Mm-hmm. They can't just come up here and not do anything, which is why Gonsalves, I think, is finding himself kind of on the outside looking in right now because they're looking at that mostly in part, I would think, based off of, production. You just got to give us a little bit more.
Yeah. Next couple of games, I mean, I actually don't have a feel for the Kings. I really liked their team last year, and frankly, they should have beaten Edmonton in the first round.
Yeah.
It has not gone as well for them this year. I mean, it just hasn't. They've been actually a better road team than home team. They were outstanding at home last year. I remember that, and they've gotten a lot of points from getting games to overtime. I was just reading that Danault is looking for a trade. I read that one of the insiders had that, or he wants to be moved. I mean, he's a big part of their team, or has been a big part of their team. Anyway, Kings aside, they don't strike me as a sort of opponent, and I may be wrong about this, but where the Lightning need to dress a lineup with physical guys. And there was a reason to do that against the Panthers beyond just the funny business. It was just the way that they needed to play in a direct line. And we talked about that on yesterday's show. So the Sabourin reassignment might be related to McDonough coming off IR. It might be related to the Lightning looking to bring in James and or Gonsalves. We'll see. So I agree with you about Geekie at this point. Like, probably it would be in his best interest to when he gets to the NHL to not play in a more limited role. That's the organization's choice. What I would say to the fan, though, that tweeted that, I will answer that question with a question. Why do you feel the Lightning need to recall Geekie? Like, what is happening with the team that is setting off, if it's right, alarm bells to be like, well, we need to recall Geekie? Yeah, they went through a 4-game losing streak where they struggled to score, but as we detailed, that was not due to lack of scoring chances or lack of effort or they were snake bitten. They broke out of it and scored 14 goals in 2 games. They didn't have a good game against Florida. I don't know that is a reason to shuffle the deck chairs in terms of the forward lines or, make changes and call somebody up. And I mean, the team has done well after the start of the year. So I'm not trying to be provocative here. I'm just asking honestly, what is it about the team is making people, and this fan may not be alone, beyond just the fact that they want to see Geekie in the NHL, which, look, I understand that sentiment, But is there something happening? They're like, well, this isn't really working, so we need to make a change. On the edges, Gonçalves has been struggling. The Lightning scratched him. So he's been scratched, what now, 4 games in a row?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he comes in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let's see how he does. I don't think James is going to sit for very long, particularly now that he's back to the visor. And let's see how he does. But your point's a good one, too. It's like, are you bringing him up just to bring him up? Or are you bringing him up with a purpose?
I would agree with that. I think it's imperative when you bring guys up, a little bit to Phil's point. I think they need to play with guys where they're going to be successful. And I don't know if a skilled player who has some pedigree, now granted, he's got to earn it. I fully am aware of that. But I do think part of the process is putting players in a position to be their best. And I think they've tried to do that with Gonçalves, and it maybe hasn't worked as much as he would like right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you look at your options and say, okay, so what makes the most sense? I'm fine with James maybe getting an opportunity there. I've told you that. I think you and I both agree. There's some juice that he has that we like. Quick with the puck, good release, smart player. I think those are all great qualities. And I think if they continue to kind of search for that, maybe what the listener was implying potentially was, is Geeky somebody that could come up and potentially fill that void? If you think it is a void.
That's kind of my point.
I don't know. I don't know.
And I'm asking this honestly.
Yeah.
Like, if Lightning fans are out there like, yes, they definitely need a change in the makeup of the forward line combinations. And I believe that is the case because of A, B, and C. Let us know. But I don't know. I mean, you just poured in 14 goals in a 2-game span, generated a ton of chances against the Islanders and got snake bitten again. And then you had a bad game against Florida. Let's see what happens in the next game. But I don't know. I mean, the Lightning are scoring goals. Right. They're not near the bottom. Like, they are doing well metrically.
I agree.
They're doing well defensively. They're doing well offensively. The one thing that has not done well consistently this year, and at points it's shown kind of getting going, and then it kind of sputters a little bit, is the power play. But you're not changing. Like, that is the unit. Remember a couple of games ago, I asked Halpern about that. He joined me after the first period. And I think it was actually when they popped in a goal. And I was like, do you feel like this top unit, now that Point's back, because Point had just come back, like, do you feel like they can really get going with the reps? And he's like, I actually kind of liked what we were doing even when Point was out. But he's like, this is the unit that we want to go with the 3 righties out there. So that's what they're going to go with.
Yeah.
And they don't see the Panthers penalty kill every single night, too. So that matters. They had scored a power play goal in 3 straight games before the Panther game. And the one they scored against the Islanders was a huge, huge goal, that 5-on-3. So if we're going to kind of pick apart the things that don't go well on the power play, we also need to acknowledge when the power play gives them a huge boost, and it did in that game.
Yeah, that's fair. Aaron says, lose a game and have a few nights off, and you're 1 point above being the second wild card. Crazy how tight this year is. Thank goodness for that winning streak.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, for me anyway, everybody can have their own way of looking at things. I just look at, like, are the Lightning on pace to get to 96 after 80 games? And if they can do that, I mean, nothing is guaranteed, but the strong, strong likelihood is they are going to be fine and get into the playoffs.
I would agree with that. I appreciate that question. C. Phillips says, finally catching a live stream. Thank you both, and Steve, for the great job you all do. Well, we thank you for listening because, quite frankly, we wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. Hungry for Power Lunch says, looking forward to today's show. Let's get zappy. And we all love that. This question's Michelle. How about going the Savard route for Hagel and using the discovery process to really get the truth out?
That's a little cryptic to me. Are they talking about Mark Savard? Is she talking about Mark Savard?
Maybe.
I actually don't know the backstory there. So Mark Savard was hit by Matt Cook. Is that the one that she's talking about?
Well, he was hit by Matt Cook.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's another part to the story. Someone's going to have to.
Did they sue?
Share
Maybe
with
was
us.
there.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Andrew says Carolina and Washington would be the closest two, in my opinion.
To your question about the top two teams.
Yeah. Thaw345 says, I love Bolt's power lunch. Tampa Bay. Why is it that every player that joins the Panthers automatically turns into an inhumane piece of you-know-what? Sorry for my language, guys. Now. Keep it clean. But you were, and I always appreciate that. Alan says, Sabrin back to Syracuse and Douglas still here. I guess the coaching staff does not agree with Greg's assessment that Sabrin brings more to the table than Douglas.
So
Maybe not.
this is a very simple equation. Let me make it as simple as I can make it. First of all, Sabrin had already cleared waivers, so I don't think that there was an issue he was going to be able to go down. If they try and send Douglas down, Utah will claim him back.
Yes.
And you're losing this player not just for the rest of this year, but moving forward.
It's a great point, because that's probably the reason why, right? Because I don't know about you, and I don't really think this is a knock on Douglas, because I think we have been very complimentary of Douglas. I think we have said, actually, what's impressed me more has been his ability to play a little bit more than his fighting. For me, he's 6'8", 6'9". You can make the case he's 7 feet on skates. I'm fine with it, and his willingness to fight, I love it. I think he looks like Stu Grimson a little bit. Doesn't fight like him, but he looks a little like Stu Grimson. I actually think, to Phil's point, the fighting needs to take that next step to be a true heavyweight. His willingness to go, I love. I actually think Sabrin's a better fighter. That was my observation. But there are enough tools in the toolbox to work with Douglas, which supports your point that they want to keep him.
Yeah.
And they don't want to expose him. Now, if everything was even, again, people come to this show to get an honest assessment. I think Sabrin has been more impressive with everything. Might not be by a lot. I will tell you this, though. I do think Sabrin handles himself very well, and I don't know too many willing people now that are like, okay, wait a minute, I got to watch out. This guy will knock you out.
I think the Panthers took notice.
Yes.
I mean, it may not have only been this. There may be an unspoken understanding on their side that's like, we're not going to engage because it drives the Lightning crazy. I mean, who knows why? But they saw what happened to Ekblad. Now, Ekblad is not, I mean, he's probably had some fights before, but I mean, he's not a fighter, right? But they saw what happened to him. And it may be that Greer and Sabrin and Mikkel and Sabrin has not happened because neither Greer nor Mikkel wants any part of Sabrin.
Right.
And you can choose to say no. I'm not going to dance. And if you start it, you're getting an instigation penalty.
Yep. I mean, that's what I have seen from Sabrin. And I actually think that's a legitimate weapon on your team. Because that guy was asking guys to go from Florida, and they didn't want any part. They didn't want any part. I don't know if it deters things from happening. That's the part
it didn't on Monday.
Yeah, I have a hard time getting there with the guys who have played this game at a high level and believe that type of player deters bad things from happening because of his presence. I don't know if that happens. It may happen on a few occasions, but I think those are few and far between. I think the game is different today for whatever reason. I think there's the NHL wants to crack down on some of these over-the-line hits, even though there's still some gray areas. I just don't know if having a true enforcer is going to stop somebody from taking a shot at somebody's head. Because I've seen it too often, not just with the Lightning, in this game today.
And I think this is a situation, and just to circle back to some of the stuff that we talked about yesterday, because now another day has passed, so I've seen some other commentary from people who I respect and are in the know. The DOPS may have missed an opportunity here. I'm not saying that they got it wrong, because I'm not going to veer off what I had said earlier, that like those two plays in the Monday game, just taken at face value with not knowing anything else about the history between the teams, neither one of them probably rises to the level of a suspendable hit. Penalties, yes, and both were missed, but at this point that's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
But I did see that, Ray Ferraro has a podcast with Darren Dreger, and Ray Ferraro was saying, like, this thing is now, like, he's like, I'm worried we're going to see, like, a 1987 type situation, meaning, like, no holds barred. And I think his exact words were, and this is him saying this, not me, just to clarify. Mm-hmm. And I'm paraphrasing. I might be getting every word exactly right, but this is the essence of what he said. This is Ray Ferraro. He said, sometimes, maybe player safety turns itself into a pretzel not to suspend a guy.
Yeah.
Like they are conscious of not taking money away from a player, maybe. Now, fans of teams that have had players suspended are like, what are you talking about? Again, I have no input on this. He follows the league as a whole way more closely than I do. And he sees a lot more games than I do because he does national games, Ray Ferraro I'm talking about. But I respect, his opinion immensely. Somebody who played the game, played in that era.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember seeing a replay of, which year was it? Was it 93 Penguins Islanders when he had the assist on David Volek's overtime winner?
Come on, you're opening up wounds.
No, but I don't think it was that. I think it might have been he was with the Islanders in the game in which Dale Hunter checked Turgeon. It might have been that game where Turgeon scored a goal.
Dirty.
And
Dirty.
But he was like, that was no holds barred. Like he's played in games like that. I may not be remembering the game that I remember, but I remember I had seen a replay of like that game or clips from that game, and I went to we had a game where he was there, and I'm like, do you remember this game? He's like, that was insane. Like he's like, we would never get a game like that again. It was a playoff game. I don't remember which game it was, but he played in that era.
Yeah, he did.
He understands how things were, and he's like,
sure.
He actually said, I fear that we are inviting this now. And this is what my point was yesterday, which was for whatever else happened in the game, I understand Crozier gave a punch to the back of the head of Rodriguez. To me, that was not on the same level as Greer throwing a roundhouse right to the side of the head of Hagel.
Yeah.
Crozier gave him a bump. I mean, he let him know he was there. I don't think it was excessive, but look, that happened. Did he have to throw the glove punch? No, he didn't. So the Lightning had some stuff happen too, where they did some stuff to Florida players. Nothing rose to the level, though, of the Jones elbow or the Mikkola play, which we'll call like elbow punch, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. And those two plays escalated an already very volatile situation. And I think Ray's point kind of was, you could have taken steps to quell that. Because, like you're saying, Sabrin on the bench, Sabrin on the ice challenging these guys didn't seem to have the deterrent effect. So what would?
That's a great question.
Multi-game suspension.
I think that's where you have to. I think that's where you have to go. That's the deterrent.
Yeah.
You do that, you're sitting 5 games. Oh, by the way,
I even think you can even say, look, in this particular situation, it's Lightning Panthers.
Right.
Like if Mikkola throws that elbow tonight against the Kings, maybe he gets a 2 for elbowing, maybe he gets a 5 in a game. Who knows? It's not really suspendable. Like he elbows Adrian Kempe, let's say, behind the net. Like there's no bad blood history between the Panthers and Kings. Panthers and Lightning, it's obviously different based on what happened in the preseason.
Right.
They've got 2 more games against each other, one in now 10 days. They missed an opportunity to lower the temperature. And maybe it wouldn't have lowered the temperature, but it might have.
Well, if you know there's a suspension to any type of hit to the head, that could be the deterrent.
Yeah.
But you've got to want to enforce that too, which goes back to my point about the officiating. It's inconsistent.
And Ray's point, and you're right. Well, look, I think those 2 plays were difficult. Now, are we going to go back and look at everything on review? I mean, Mikkola was sneaky. Like, we didn't see it live.
Was he sneaky? Yes.
The officials didn't see it. Gensel felt it. Mm-hmm. You might say, well, what made Gensel react that way? If you're the referees, like, let's go back and see if something happened. But
I don't think you do that.
Don't really
I don't think you do that.
Indiscriminately look at replays. So look, referees aside, it's a tough job. Like, some stuff is missed. The Ekblad play in the playoffs, they shouldn't have missed. Like, he should have gotten a game misconduct for that, the Hagel play. He didn't. That was a big swing and miss because Ekblad scored the tying goal later.
And that's what started all this. Miss.
They would say the Hagel play on Barkov started all this.
Well, that's fair. That's a fair point.
Be that as it may, the onus on the league to lower the temperature, I think there is an onus on the league. Tried to lower the temperature when they sent George Parros, and maybe he was like, "I'm going," but his presence in that first meeting in the building did have, I'm guessing, an effect. So if if you're a Panther player and you're like, we're playing the Lightning, the referees may not see my sneaky elbow, but the DOPS will, because someone's going to catch it on replay, and I might get suspended 2, 3, 4, 5 games. When my team's already got a bunch of injuries, not worth it. I'm not doing it. But what does Mikkola think now? I just elbowed Gensel in the head. Mikkola almost seemed surprised that Gensel wanted to fight him. He was like, what? Maybe he was like, you're actually fighting me? I've got like 5-6 inches on you. Or just like, why do you want to fight me?
I think that's what it was, because you can't be surprised.
That's the point.
Somebody would approach you if you hit them in the back of the head.
If you elbow somebody forcefully in the head when they're in a vulnerable position, you should expect some kind of response. And he's like, well, no, I don't expect. Like, what? And then Gensel got him too. Gensel punched him in the face. Yeah. Like, you could see Mikkola was like, oh, he was surprised that he got punched.
I got punched in the face. Why?
Then he pushed Gensel down. The fight was over. So the other part of this is, by not doing anything, the DOPS, what message does that send to the Lightning? And this is Ray's point. Like, Ray Ferraro, I'm talking about. He's kind of like, you just turned up the heat on the pot.
Yeah, right? You did. You did.
Yeah.
You really did. And that is fair. At Bolts Radio, if you want to get involved in the conversation, let me get to our glorious read. Tonight, enjoy some Reef Rum, smooth, versatile, now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. You can ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts, and please enjoy responsibly. Yes, especially around the holidays.
And the last thing I'll say about this, and this is just this is very imprecise on my part. I mean, it's not like I'm spending a ton of time online, digging and looking for opinions. But, if a hockey person by a hockey person, I mean somebody who has been in the game, covers the game, played the game, they are offering an opinion on the Jones hit. I'm not even, the Mikkola one, to me, that's black and white, okay? But the Jones one, some people were like, well, was that just a bang-bang play? Most of the opinion that I saw was actually more severe than the one I offered on the show yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like Ray Ferraro said, Seth Jones, chicken wing. He's sticking out his elbow. He was actually talking about the suspension to Jones. He's turning yourself into a pretzel not to suspend a guy.
Sure.
So I think the sentiment actually was that screenshot is so damning to Jones because the elbow is pointed out. Yeah. Hagel's right there. It's it's a moment caught in time, and I understand the game moves quickly. That was a split second, but whoever got that picture, that is the one that's the lasting image of the play. And it looks horrible for Jones. It looks like he intentionally targets Hagel's head.
Yeah.
So that's the lasting image, and the kind of commentary about it has been he should have been suspended. I offered a less severe opinion on this show, and I represent the Lightning, but I'm just repeating kind of what I'm seeing out there. I don't know if you have dipped your toe in the pool at all to kind of gauge response. And this is not from anybody with skin in the game. Again, this is like I'm interested in commentary from people who don't have any skin in the game, who are just like trying to look at this where they don't really have a vested interest in wearing a badge of honor for one team or the other.
It's hard to find people who don't have an interest anymore in sports.
Well, I just mean like if they're pro Lightning or pro Panthers or anti-Panthers or anti-Lightning. They're just like, I cover the league, I cover a bunch of teams, or I cover this team. This team doesn't really have any kind of problem one way or the other with either one of these teams, is what I think.
Chris says Michelle from earlier was talking about when the refs sued and it came out that Campbell was attempting to bias referees in favor of his son, who was then a player.
Does that have to do with Mark Savard?
Yeah, Michelle says basically during discovery it was found that Colin Campbell was lobbying NHL front office to admonish refs for calling hits from his kid, and Savard calling Savard a faker.
Yeah, this is sorry, Michelle, this is getting into the whole conspiracy thing. And look, I'm not disputing that happened, but in this case, I mean, look, unless somehow I'm proven wrong by it, I just don't believe that there's some kind of conspiracy going on in the NHL. Sorry.
K-Bay says, I'm more worried about the game against the Panthers right before the Olympic break.
Yeah, the last meeting is right before the Olympic break.
What's that going to be like? You know?
You know what's going to be very interesting, if it plays out this way, that the Four Nations roster for Canada basically is resembling, or at least anybody who's on the Four Nations roster for Canada is also on the Olympic roster. Do you think there's going to be a little tension between Sam Bennett and Sorelli Hagel? Bennett was on that team.
I don't know.
Was Reinhart? Reinhart was on the team too. I don't think most people have a problem with Reinhart, but I wonder. I don't know. You put all that aside for 2-3 weeks to play for your country, and
hard to.
Forgotten.
That is hard to, but it's
Yeah.
I get that. Chris says, I don't think the Lightning need to change much, but in response to Dave's question, I think the only concern I have is we don't really have a championship-level third line. I think on a championship team, Gord, Holmberg, and Gergensen would be the fourth line with a bit more dynamic of a third line.
Look, I mean,
that's a fair point.
I love the Gord line, and look, if you had that as a fourth line, what we would call a fourth line, like they might be used as a third line, but what he's really saying is when he sees Paul, Douglas, and Savarin, that to him is the fourth line. He'd rather see the Gord line as the fourth line with a different line as the third line, and Nick Paul could center a line like that.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, there's still a lot of lineup machinations that can happen, and we also have the trade deadline, or the Lightning may add. The easiest thing to add at the deadline, not that it's easy, but probably the player that is most available at the deadline is depth forward.
So,
or a specialty type forward, like a face-off guy. Top six, more rare and more expensive. Any kind of defenseman will fit into your top six. Expensive top four defensemen, maybe the most expensive. Depth forward, they are out there. They get moved at the deadline.
Do we know where Bjorkstrand fits in?
Well, right now he's in the top six. And
I mean, is that kind of where he just needs to be? You know, because
I
saw him in a third line.
We need to let him play there a little bit.
Get going.
Not we, you and me, but he's got a little point streak going. He did have an assist on the Crozier goal. They've been out there for more goals scored than allowed.
Because that's a little. I mean, look, there are a couple of other X factors in this, and I feel weird saying X factor, but like Braden Point gets going, that changes things. It just does offensively. Yeah. You know, Bjorkstrand gets going, that does change things, and those are two accomplished players. It just does feel like, will the third line come to fruition once guys like Bjorkstrand and Point really settle into their typical dynamic roles? And Point, obviously, is it fair to say breaking him and Cooch apart maybe is where they go? And
for
then
now, I think part of it is because
permanent?
Kucherov has done so well with Cirelli and Hagel, but now Hagel is out.
Let's
see what
correct.
the lineup. Look,
Right.
He may not be out long term. Who knows? I think the last time the Soucy play, he missed one game. That was it.
So I'm going to give an
Maybe
observation.
2. Maybe he missed 2 games. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look.
I'm going to give an observation because who would theoretically then the first line would be something like what? Point, Gensel, and Bjorkstrand.
Well, if you're going to keep that point line together with Gensel and Bjorkstrand, you're going to keep Hagel and Cirelli together. You could use another winger. You could put Paul on that side as a winger. You could use a Gonsalves or a James.
But if everybody's healthy right now, in the way Bjorkstrand is going, the tendency maybe would be to leave him on that.
I think
that
so.
Line.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I want to see it play out. Because ideally, I think your third line could be that line that our listener suggested if Nick Paul is your centerman with a Bjorkstrand and somebody else there. I actually think that could be a good third line because you got some juice there and you have some pop. Now, I totally get it. You want to see what Bjorkstrand can do on a first line to get him going. But I think when this team is rolling, is that third line better having some of those offensive options in a Paul, Bjorkstrand, and somebody else? Maybe it is a Gonsalves, maybe it is a James.
Yeah.
Rather than Bjorkstrand going to that first line, and then you're trying to figure it out again on that third a little bit more. So I don't know what the answer to that is, by the way.
Yeah, I think look, the Lightning have done well this year, though. So, I don't know if these are questions that are seeking out a problem that is not a major problem. Right now, the Lightning are doing well. For the most part, they are scoring enough. They're getting points. They are in a position to set themselves up for a good second half. And they have time to kind of work all of this out and find the best combinations. I think they have viable options. And one of those options might be Geeky, as the fan mentioned earlier in the show, which is kind of what was it Chris had that, like, referencing what I was asking of that fan. Now, I will tell you, Rob Zettler met with the media after practice and said Hagel is considered day-to-day and has not been ruled out for tomorrow's game. So, when you're not feeling great after getting a hit to the head, it is day-to-day. You have to wait and see, like, how you are day-to-day. But the fact that he hasn't already been ruled out is a good sign. And it looks like Vasilevskiy and McDonough, reading the tea leaves here, it sounds like, to me, they're both going to be playing. But
Right.
The fact that they sent Halverson down means that Vasilevskiy is fine to dress. And if he's fine to dress and he hasn't played in a while, you'd expect to see him in.
Yep.
McDonough is like, we'll see tomorrow. And usually when a player says that, that's a good indication that, yeah, they feel pretty good. And they're just going to wait to confirm that until they wake up tomorrow. It'll probably be an optional skate tomorrow. And I would be surprised if the Kings skate at all because they played tonight against the Panthers.
We shall see,
Yeah.
as they say. We shall see. I always love talking about kind of the depth because I think the Lightning do have options there. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter now of trying to figure it all out. And I think that's kind of where they are. Let's see. This question, Alan says, before the trade deadline, what would you guys think of trading Bjorkstrand and Chafee and a draft pick to Toronto to get Nylander and Nice? Would that be possible? I don't think that's enough to get those two players.
No.
Nylander is a world-class player.
Yeah.
Say what you want about the guy, whether you
Matthew
think...
Nyes is a budding suit. There is
Matthew Nyes.
There is no way the Maple Leafs are trading Matthew Nyes unless it's a huge blockbuster trade and something extremely valuable is coming back the other way. Sorry. Not happening.
Now listen, if you think, well, no, we can't even go down that road because that's just not even
a
worth
little
it.
early for trade
Not even worth
speculation at this point.
Let's see. I'm seeing stuff. Heard a rumor Lightning may try to get Steven Stamkos. Yeah, it's just not. We're not gonna go
Let's
there.
react to potential trades after they happen as opposed to before.
I mean, this one was Michael. We kind of touched on this, but I'm seeing the sentiment around partner a little bit. Brandon Hagel wasn't in practice, so I guess the Panthers did give him another concussion. Seth Jones didn't even get a hearing. Department of Player Safety strikes again.
Look, we talked about that about 10, 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
A lot of people around the league felt that Jones should have been suspended.
Which is interesting because you and I came on and like between the two hits at full speed, maybe the Mikkola hit was worse, but
The Mikkola hit was worse. The problem with the Jones play is that it was Hagel.
yeah, right.
That's the problem.
Well, and
And
when
there
you
was
slow
an
it
injury,
down,
and
when
there
you
was an injury.
right.
Gensel was not injured on the play with Mikkola.
That's fair. Logan, we'll end on this. He says, I was wondering, with a game that Halverson played like 10 seconds, does that show anything on his sheet like a game played? Would it show a 0-save shutout or just TOI he played, you guys rock? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a game played. So now
Good
he's
for
played
him.
3 games in the NHL, and those 6 seconds or whatever it was count in a good way for his goals against and his save percentage. Well, not his save percentage because he didn't face a shot. But there's no shutout. No. To get a shutout, it has to be a full game shutout. So, like, let's say the Lightning had shut out the Islanders, and that same situation would have happened where Johansson had to leave for 6 seconds. Then I do believe Halverson, they share a shutout. That's a weird statistical anomaly, which was not the case because they didn't earn the shutout. But it has to be a shutout of the team that you're facing. And if you contributed to that by even playing a second, then it does count in your stat line.
Cool. Yeah.
For him, it's just a game played, and his goals against went down, if it went down at all, like a minuscule amount.
A fraction.
Yeah.
Fraction.
Well, it's always a fraction, isn't it? Because the GAA is number.
It's always a fun question.
Yeah.
I always like it for those guys, too, that get called up. They get that NHL salary. Mm-hmm.
He had it for more than a day or two.
So good for him.
Sure.
I mean, listen, that for guys who are kind of in that space where you're not necessarily a regular, but you're trying to get to the NHL and maybe you get a few games here and there. I mean, from that perspective, that's pretty cool. That stuff like that can happen. This question comes from Everly. I think if we continue our good road record next month, could be good.
Yes, it will be a challenge. And she's really talking about late December into January.
Yeah. The road record versus away record has been interesting this year. I don't know what to make of it other than we can talk more about that tomorrow.
They've had a couple of bad home losses. They have.
Yeah.
The game against the Panthers was a bad home loss.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually thought that they kind of had some hijinks go against them in the home losses to the Rangers in Vancouver, but those were lopsided home losses, and then the 2 at the start of the year were not great games for the Lightning. So those are 5 that I just mentioned right off the bat, off the top of my head, that are all regulation losses. But I think if they keep playing the way that they are playing into the second half, their home record will be good. Like, the home record will be fine. Continuing the road record, though, remember we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We looked at the road record the Lightning have had the last few years, and really the last time they had a John Cooper-esque road record in the regular season was 21-22. They have not done well on the road in the regular season the last 3 seasons. Even though, like in the 2023 playoffs, they went 2-1 on the road in Toronto. So they went 0-3 at home. Last year, they went 1-1 on the road in the playoffs. They won one of the 2 games in Sunrise. But during the regular season, it's not been good. This year has been flipped. So I think it is imperative that they continue to, as we say, munch points when they start getting into this road-intensive January part of their schedule. And the California trip is, I mean, it's never easy, a couple of years ago, the Lightning lost all 3 games. I think they lost all 3 games. Maybe it was last year. Was it last year? They lost 2 games by a goal, and then Anaheim, I think, got an empty netter and pulled away late. But basically, they were all 1-goal games. This year is going to be, because Anaheim has improved and San Jose has improved. I'm not sure that LA has improved. We'll see them tomorrow, but they're still a good team. So it's not quite like that trip was in the 2010s when it was quite a gauntlet going through there. And then it kind of flipped because Anaheim and San Jose went to the bottom of the standings. But that's not an easy trip, which the Lightning have at the end of the month through the new year.
Well, partner, we'll be at it again tomorrow.
Yes.
We have a game. It'll be live. And I don't know if we want to try and get somebody, see if anybody down there from the Kings
I'm not
wants
sure
to hop
anyone
on.
from LA is going to be in the building tomorrow.
Do they even
we'll see.
Okay. Well, regardless, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Regardless, we're going to have some good hockey talk.
We will effort.
For everybody. We will effort. I love that word. We're efforting. We are efforting. We efforted today.
Some teams have kind of an optional to the rink. Yeah. Some teams bring everyone to the rink, and it's not going to be a full skate because the Kings play tonight. But some teams are like, we'll be there at 5. You know, see you tonight, depending on what happens and what happens the night before.
Makes sense.
The game is like, how late you get in, coach's choice.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right, partner. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
We'll
have
do
a
it
good
again
rest
tomorrow.
of your day.
Yep, you too. Thanks, everybody, who participated. Steve Ersnick, thank you as well. Everybody who listened and chimed in, we always appreciate you guys. You have been listening to Power Lunch. I am Greg Linnelli, right here on Lightning Radio.